New real estate investors just can't help but make these same painful mistakes over and over that lose them money, that scare them out of the business altogether. And the worst part is these are all preventable if you know what to do. So today we're going to show you what to do and save you some headaches so you don't screw up and get burned your first, second, third, fourth go around in this biz. But before we get into that, I'm going to give you some free stuff. Write down this coupon code, Happy New Year, one word, all lowercase. It's valid for a single freebie of any of the 4 things you could choose from the ACE Toolkit store. If you go to investwithace.com/tools or our link in bio, or click this thing hovering over my head if you're on YouTube, it'll take you there. Pick, most people like the legendary rental property calculator, but we also have a lending starter kit that gets you rolling with banks. It's going to make you look like a pro, a guide to vet out property managers, and even a deal analysis cheat sheet so you don't miss key details when you're hunting for properties yourself. So pick from the 4 of them. The course is not included. The virtual investor's guide is already a steal. It's our blueprint internally for how we go and hunt for out-of-state deals 100% remotely and get them off market and do it successfully and repeatably. And it could be a write-off for you too, right? So we're approaching the end of the year. If you need a continued education deduction, it should qualify for you. But that's all, enough plugs. Let's jump right into it. And we're gonna do this in one take, no edits, because we don't need an editor because we actually know what we're talking about here. So we'll flow right through this thing. I'm gonna give you 5 key mistakes that new investors make so often. We see them all the time, and they all fall into one of 3 categories. The first category is people overextending themselves financially, super common. The second is investors taking on difficult shit and expecting it to be easy. And the third is having the wrong expectations altogether about real estate investing, thinking it's going to get you so rich, and it just really doesn't work like that. And some of these 5 things fall into multiple categories. So let's dive in. The first one is BRRRR method to infinity. If you listen to enough podcasts and watch enough TikToks and you don't really know this biz, you're likely to think that the idea of getting a free property by buying it at a discount, fixing it up a little bit, and then getting it to appraise for way more than what you're into it for, getting all your money back from a lender, is just this mindless, easy thing. When I got into this biz, that's what I thought I was gonna do. And then I realized that's just not how it works for a variety of reasons. And I'm gonna give you a couple of the key reasons, just so I don't exhaust this thing on how unrealistic the BRRRR method could be. It's a good method if you do it right, but it's just not going to take you to ultra riches from zero very quickly. The first problem is it's not that easy to find properties at a substantial discount from their true market value. The second problem is executing on the rehab. Like if you want to really add value, it's going to take a heavy rehab, right? It's not that easy to find a property that only needs just paint to be worth way more than what you got it for, unless you got a really lucky deal. But to execute on a big rehab on maybe an inexpensive property if you're just starting, it takes having the right contractors in place, getting good pricing, getting it done in a timely fashion, being able to control it all. Not as easy as it sounds. Trust me, less rehab is better, but big rehabs are what it takes to add value. And then getting it to actually appraise for what you think ARV is. You gotta have a conservative approach to what you think this value is gonna be. A lot of people come to us, buy properties from us, or ask to buy properties from us, and expect them with, like a 5K paint and cleanup job per unit to be worth like 40-50% more than what they paid for it. And that's just not how adding value works. And thinking lenders are just going to want to give you loans forever too on these things, right? These properties, the lenders understand these properties aren't as profitable once the incidentals and the unit turns and the vacancies kind of kick in as some new investors would like to think. It's a long-term play. So they don't want to just give you loans on properties forever, like a lot of people think they will, just because they can find another BRRRR deal. So the BRRRR to infinity thing, you need to really temper your expectations on that and find some other ways to make money and pour it into properties, or just be a little more patient. The second one is really cheap properties, which we like cheap properties. They can work. There's a right way to do them, but they oftentimes require stabilization, or they're more likely to require management, tenant, and maybe some like improvement stabilization in the first year of ownership than a property in a true B-class neighborhood that you pay a lot more for, that's not going to cash flow as well, especially not on paper. And once it is stable, the cheaper property is probably going to cash flow a little bit more, but it is going to come with some complexity. It's more likely that it comes with some complexity as far as management goes. The third mistake people make, and I freaking hate this one because it gets pushed so hard, but like the downsides to it don't really get disclosed to you very openly. It's all the creative financing bullshit. And it ranges from private money to hard money and then refinancing out of it once your project's completed to like seller financing and sub 2 deals. These methods, they're useful if you have a good deal. But buying a property with 100% loan to value, meaning you don't put any money down, you got a loan for the full value of the property because you got it on a sub 2 from someone that was distressed, is likely to eat so far into your cash flow that this thing is not going to be very profitable. And a lot of people don't expect to have to spend money on their properties afterwards. So 100% LTV, dangerous. This sub 2 seller financing thing, putting money down makes your mortgage payment smaller, makes your property cash flow more, and gives you a margin of safety if you need to sell. You're not underwater. Getting a private loan or a DSCR loan, everyone says, just go get DSCR loans. The problem with DSCR loans is they're fucking expensive. You're gonna pay probably about 2 points over average market rate with them, 2% interest higher than average market rate, which really eats into your deal. And you're gonna pay origination fees up front. You're gonna pay a percentage of the total loan amount up front because they know you are a high risk borrower if you're going to them and not a regular lender that wants to see all of your income and docs and all that. They give you an easier process, they approve you more easily, they charge you to offset their risk, and that charge offsets the income of your property. So if you want to take on any of these creative financing methods, the more expensive the method or the more debt you have relative to the property's value, the better of a deal it needs to be on the front end for you to justify it. Don't go buying something at market as is that needs work, getting a big loan on it at a really high rate and expect to really make anything out of your real estate portfolio in the short to mid term. And you're taking on a lot of risk. Number 4, another mistake I hate to see, cash in the bank. For some reason, investors seem to think that buying real estate is a great thing or new investors often seem to think that buying real estate is a good idea when you're broke. And it's not, because real estate's fucking expensive. It costs a lot of money to purchase and it's capital intensive to maintain, and they don't factor in the whole stabilization concept, right? Sometimes, very often, properties cost more money than they make or cost a good amount of what they make in the early period of ownership so that they can be stable and in the long run, they make you more money. That cost comes out of your pocket. Having no money in the bank is a recipe for disaster the second anything goes wrong, and everyone who's in this business knows that it's a business where things go unexpected or not as expected frequently. It's called incidentals. You ask any investor about what's your cost of incidentals, or should I expect incidentals? And they'll be like, yeah, this is just part of the biz. When you buy properties, you have incidentals, especially until you know and have invested in getting your property steady and consistent. So cash in the bank, cash is king. It always has been. It makes you a better buyer for deals, and it makes you sleep well at night when little things go wrong because you could ride it through and not get emotional because you know what's going to be on the other side of that. And you can take a long-term approach and not be in a situation where you need to sell and dump a property because you weren't prepared to absorb some stabilization costs. When you sell a property quickly after buying it, transactional costs of real estate are high. It's not like buying a stock. It's almost always a losing situation. And especially if your property is now in an unstable state when you decide to sell it. Number 5, and this is my favorite one. It's general, but it's very true. It's thinking rentals will get you rich. I've never, ever met a person with a ton of rental properties that got to owning a ton of rental properties by buying one and using the cash flow from that one to buy more. They always have some sort of business, oftentimes revolving around real estate. People who are not in the real estate business, they have a couple properties. They just accumulate, they use it to park their cash on the side. They buy turnkey, or they buy a property that needs a little work, make it turnkey, sit on it, go back to their day job. The people that own tons of properties, they're usually in the biz, they're operators, and they have other ways of making income. They buy at major discounts, they add value, they 1031 into 10 more properties, right? We flip these properties. Let me get my backlight going on my computer. We flip properties, we sell properties to investors that want to buy out of state, relatively stable stuff, and we make a healthy margin on each of the properties we resell. That's our primary biz. That's what pays for all my properties. The rental income for my properties doesn't pay for most of the real estate that I purchase every year. It pays for a small fraction of it, even with a pretty sizable portfolio that we've been able to develop. So thinking the rentals will get you rich, get out of that mindset. You'll have a much easier time getting rich if you form some sort of income producing, income increasing, revenue generating business, or just go get a raise at your day job, right? But just have the right expectations, or else you're gonna be very sad as you acquire properties. Investments are slow, they're steady, they're long-term. That's the benefit of real estate, but you have to have a little bit of patience. And that's it. Those are the 5 biggest ones. And honestly, I could think of other ones, but if you make sure you address all 5 of these key mistakes, you're probably going to be just fine as long as you know how to evaluate properties correctly, which we help you do in other videos and in the course and all that stuff. Quick recap, the 5 mistakes: BRRRR to infinity, really cheap properties and not knowing how to do it right or not having the patience with them. All that creative financing bullshit, right? Misunderstanding that, not having enough cash in the bank, and number 5, thinking real estate's just gonna get you rich. It's just the fast track to having tens of millions of dollars, right? The 3 categories are overextending yourself financially, taking on real complicated shit and expecting it to be easy, and just having the wrong expectations. So if you keep all these in mind, you'll be in a much better place. Hopefully you got a freebie. Go check out the stuff on that store. I might as well plug one more time since we're giving you some good free information, and have a great new year.